Bismillah, alhamdulillah, wa salatu wa salam, ala nabiyyina Muhammad wa ala alihi wa ashabihi ajma'een. Amma ba'd, this is a Q&A session that took place with the Shaykh, Dr. Usama Utaybi. May Allah preserve him and reward him. This is a number of questions that were presented from the communities here in America. And the Shaykh, he began with Khutbat al-Hajjah and mentioning that this meeting is with the brothers that's here in the States. And the first question that was posed to the Shaykh was that a man committed zina, illegal sexual intercourse with a woman before his Islam. And as a result of that union, a child came. And then after some time, 3 years, since the birth of the child, both of them, meaning the man and the woman, they accepted Islam. And the praise is for Allah. What is the ruling regarding this child? Is this child attributed to the man, and does this child inherit from the man? The Shaykh mentioned a child that comes from marriage before Islam or after Islam, the rules and the regulations as it relates to the lineage is established. And as for the matter of zina, or illegal sexual intercourse in Jahiliyyah or in Islam, whether the child is a male or female, then the rules and regulations are one, and that is the lineage is not established for the child that is born out of wedlock, as the child is not considered the man's child according to the legislation, and the child does not inherit. He said even if they were to have like a connection to the child, meaning the man and the family have the connection to the child, like what used to be done before when a person would free a slave, they would say that the person is the mola of that person, then there's no harm if something like this is done. But the rules and regulations that are connected to lineage are not established. And the Shaykh mentioned that there is a consensus upon this matter. He said, so zina is zina. In Jahiliyyah or in Islam, zina is zina. The next question that came, what is the ruling on there being mixed genders in WhatsApp groups that are established for business purposes? And the Shaykh mentioned that the mixed WhatsApp groups or Facebook groups that involve men and women conversating with one another and speaking to one another and commenting one another and gifting one another and sending emojis and the likes, the Shaykh says this is a door to the doors of evil, therefore it is not permissible, due to this being something that can lead to great evil. He said, but as for a group that has men and women in the group, but there is no interacting between the men and the woman, and no sending of emojis and things that can, stir up a person's feelings and the likes, then he said it's hard to say that this is haram. It's hard to say that this is haram. Naam. And then somebody had mentioned in the questioning, but the woman's phone numbers are present and can be seen by these men. And, this could be worse than women and men being together physically, like in a place. And the Shaykh, he says, when men and women are mixing in a place, then we know the harms of this. This is something that's a reality. We know the harms. As for the woman's numbers being apparent, it doesn't necessarily mean that there's going to be a harm that comes from this. And the Shaykh, he mentioned also that if there is a group that is, whether it's for business or even if it's for the matter of seeking of knowledge, if there is this open intermingling between the genders, then this is not allowed. So the third question that came was regarding a man who married without the knowledge of his parents. And now he wants to do the marriage over, to appease his parents. And the reason why the person did not tell the parents in the beginning, because they might not have been in agreement with the situation and other than that. So now the person's been married, he already married the woman. So now can he go back and do it over as if, it's a new marriage to appease the parents? The Shaykh mentioned that a man is not in need of his parents' permission to marry. Rather, it is the woman who cannot marry without a wali. So the man, he married secretly, and he wants to know if he can do it over, just for show, and not really doing a marriage contract. The Shaykh, he says this is evil and this is not permissible. He said the marriage contract is a matter of legislation. It is a legislated contract. And it is a magnificent, significant contract. And in it is the private areas being made halal by the words of Allah. And these are matters of legislation, and this is not a game for one to be acting as if he's getting married or to deceive, to make the people think that he's getting married for the first time. Rather, this issue of marriage is a command of Allah that is to be done in accordance to the legislation of Allah and upon the guidance of the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So it is not permissible to do another zawaj. It's not, and it should not be, and there's no need to redo it. And the parents must understand that matter has already taken place, and it was done in order for the two parties to stay away from the haram and to preserve their chastity. And there are legislated ways to convince the parents, the Shaykh, he mentioned. He said also, they can send my answer to them. And also that I advise the two parents to pardon their son for marrying without their knowledge, especially if the child or the son is from the youth. For him marrying was him marrying based upon the book and the sunnah. It was a means of protecting his privates from indecency. And this is a matter that should make the parents happy. And he also completed half of his deen. And from marriage comes children. And this will make the parents to be grandparents. And this is something that Allah made easy for the son. And there are many situations where the parents can't even get their own children married. And it's a sad situation for the parents that they cannot help their children. But Allah made it easy for the son here to get married. So how much more so now that this is the case, that the son has married, so they should be happy for the son, and they should pardon the son and be diligent in doing that which brings about benefits. The next question came regarding a caller to Islam who was known to have a sound minhaj and correct aqidah, correct belief. However, there are some matters or points of criticism against him that he it's befitting that he rectifies them. Is it permissible to take from this individual before he has rectified these affairs? Or should we withhold from taking from him until he rectifies these affairs? The Shaykh mentioned, if this caller is one who is Salafy in his minhaj and in his aqidah, these matters ought to be looked at. If the matters of criticism against him are matters that no human being is free from, this doesn't stop one from benefiting from him. Like, he at times may have mannerisms that are not good, or he overreacts to what his companions they do, or he falls into some mistakes, thinking one matter is one way, but in reality is another way. Matters that do not taint his integrity and matters that do not make him a criminal. These are matters that come about. Even if he did a sin and he repented, and this sin is not his habitual practice, he's not known for being a sinner. For every individual, though the person is subjected to sin, but this is not his model. This is not his way. One moment, please. Nah. 1 second. Nah. As for the person, for this person, he should not and there is no harm in taking. No, the person who has committed a sin. Okay, no, jazakallah. 1 moment, please. Now, so the person is subjected to a sin. It must not be like his MO. It must not be his model. It must not be his habit to where he is a fasiq, or he's not one who he's not one whose manhood is no longer intact due to him doing that which shows he is foolish and he's not from the people of knowledge or virtue. The likes of this person, if he is grounded upon the kitab and the sunnah, preserves the salah and the outward aspects and practices of Islam, and he is one who normally stays away from the haram, but he has something of, bad manners or something that's not, praiseworthy in his dealings that some people criticize him for, there's no one in society that's free from this. Everyone has this type of affair with them. Even some of the righteous people have fallen into some things. The likes of this person is tolerated, and one continues to benefit from him. However, if these sins are apparent, especially, or as an example, the Shaykh says, these sins are apparent, and as an example, a person is known to be a liar. He's not known to be truthful. He's not truthful. Or the person is known to be a thief. Or the person is known to be fond of beardless young boys and hanging around young boys. And he makes inappropriate advances upon the young males and females. The likes of this type of person is to be avoided. As there are some sins that a person commits that this is in that person's nature. It's like innate sins that even if the person repents, they keep going back to doing the same things. So the likes of these people, if this becomes known about them, they are to be avoided and abandoned. Even if they make tawbah. Their tawbah is between them and Allah. Their tawbah is for themselves. But a person who is known to be inclined towards beardless boys and inclined towards homosexuality, even if he claims that he repented, he is to be abandoned. because it is difficult for the likes of this individual to repent and be upright afterwards. The Shaykh says, and I'm not saying that his tawbah is not accepted. If he makes tawbah, with correct tawbah, is accepted. However, his situation is dangerous and he's not to be trusted. Likewise, one who is a habitual liar, who lies just to lie for no reason, he's an innate liar. The likes of this person is to be abandoned. Then you have a third category of people, the person who has some sins, but it's rare. But the sins are sins which will make a person a fasiq. Like it becomes apparent that a person consumed intoxicants. However, he's not one who's an addict. He's not one who constantly uses drugs. But the person fell into using intoxicants. They say like a person, he was sick and he took some pills during that time. And those pills had a negative effect upon his mind. Or someone, spiked his drink or gave him some drugs and he didn't know. And then afterwards, he became better. He never went back to that. He's established upon uprightness for a time. Or a person, lied for being in a tight situation, for being in a bind, and then afterwards the person repented. And the person is not known to be an innate liar or an intentional liar. He is to be advised and abandoned until he repents. If he repents and he is established, then there is no harm in taking knowledge from him again. If this person's deviance is similar to the deviance that's with the people who pretend to have knowledge and to be on levels of knowledge that they are not on, and people who causing fitna and speak bad about the scholars and warning against the people of the sunnah without right. If the person has this type of deviance from him or with him, and he becomes from these people of fitna and he has their characteristics, and from their characteristics is lying and plotting against the people of the sunnah, this individual can either be from their heads or from their followers. If this person repents, his repentance is accepted. And he is to be advised in order that he does not return back to that type of behavior. As for if the person is from the heads or the leaders from amongst them, then at least this individual is to be observed for a year. We don't take from him right away, but we watch him for a year to see if he is truthful in his repentance. And if he repents and he doesn't go back to those evil characteristics, then he is welcome, then we take from him. Question number 5. We know the misguidance and the polytheism of the Christians. However, what is the situation with the Jews? And how are they considered to be worse than the Christians? And what is their polytheism in this day and time of ours? The Shaykh mentions both the Christians and the Jews are polytheists. Allah mentions, and the Jews say that Uzair is the son of Allah, and the Christians say that the Messiah is the son of Allah. And that is their statement that they make with their mouths, which is similar to the statement of those who disbelieved before, to the end of the verse. Also, the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he said, the curse of Allah is upon the Jews and the Christians, where they took the graves of their prophets as places of worship. The Christians have shirk with Allah, as they claim that Allah has a child, and also the Jews claim that Allah has a child. The Jews claim that Uzair, who was Ezra, was a righteous man, And he lived during a time when the Torah was lost after Musa. And he had memorized the Torah and he depicted it to the people. So afterwards, because he memorized the Torah and he told the people the Torah, the people said that he was the son of Allah. Also, the Jews worshipped the calf. And they say in their book that it was the Prophet Harun who made the calf for them. However, Harun rebuked them and warned against this practice of shirk, but they disobeyed him and they were about to kill him. And he feared that he would be the cause of separation between Bani Israel. And if he was to fight against them, this would take place, meaning the separation. So he said, I feared you would say that I caused division between Bani Israel and you would not have accepted my word. So the Jews, they claim that the Prophet Harun was the one who made the calf. And this is in their book. And this is without a doubt a lie. As Allah mentions that the Jews said to Musa, make for us a God like the polytheists have gods. And this is with the Jews. And it is connecting themselves to a thing and believing that this thing is sacred and holy. And that this thing gets them closer to Allah. They have the same thing with them in this day and time that they had with them before. They believe that the Jews are holy and that their synagogues are holy places in which Allah is inside of. This is from their polytheistic beliefs. And they surpass the Christians in evil because they have knowledge and they conceal the knowledge. And they also have rancor and enmity and hatred in their heart. Worse than the Christians. Worse than the Christians. So they have with them shirk. They have with them rancor and enmity. They have with them acts of misguidance that are worse than what the Christians do. And these are some of the examples of their shirk. And Allah Azza wa Jal mentions in the Quran, which means you will find those with the most severe enmity towards those who believe, being the Jews and the pagans. So Allah mentions the Jews and the pagans. Question number 6. Is it permissible for a woman to seek a khula while she is already in the state of iddah? The Shaykh says, if the sister goes to the courts and presents her case, and this of course is, the Shaykh is speaking in terms of in the lands where there are Islamic courts, and she presents her case, she can do so. No one can stop her from doing that. Like the sister's already divorced, but she wants a khula, she wants out. Like, okay, it's allowed for her to go to the courts and present her case. And the judge, if he wants to hear the case, he will call for the husband. And then the husband will tell the judge that she's already in iddah because he divorced her. And this is what is intended at the end from the khula, that a separation takes place. So the judge may or may not look into the matter of the khula, being that the divorce already has taken place. And the judge may say, okay, the divorce has taken place, that's what it is, and it's upon the woman to wait out her iddah. Now, if it's the first or the second divorce, the judge may tell the woman, remove your request of a khula and go and try to work things out with your husband. Naam. Naam. And then it may be the situation that the judge, he hears the khula situation, he investigates. And the Shaykh, he mentioned a beautiful point, that a khula case with a judge is not something that's just handled in one moment. The judge calls the husband, seeks to bring about rectification. If there is no way, then he requests the woman to pay back the dowry in order that the husband gives her the khula. These matters go back to like the judges and not like the imams in the masjid, like you have in America. If a husband divorced the wife and she's in iddah and they come to an imam, the sheikh advised that the imam should not delve into the case and that let the situation play out. He said, likewise, and this was the second part of the question, is it allowed for the man not to give the woman her nights while she's in iddah? The Shaykh, he said, it is allowed for the husband to refrain from having relations with her during her iddah, during her nights. Now, it is allowed for the husband to refrain from having relations with her during her iddah, during her nights. Now, I need to go back one moment. When I mentioned if it's the first or the second divorce, and then the Shaykh said, and the husband takes her back, and then she insists on seeking the khula, the judge may tell her to remove her request for the khula and work to rectify the situation. So going back to the situation with the husband, he says that the husband can refrain from having relations with her during her night, but he is to stay in the home. He is to stay in the home, and perhaps during this time, she makes herself beloved to him once again in order that he returns her back and takes her out of iddah. And this is one of the goals behind iddah. It gives the couple a chance to rectify the situation. It gives the couple a chance for the man to take his wife back. But if the man is adamant about divorcing her, then she should not attempt to seduce him. But if she does make an attempt to seduce him and he gives in, then perhaps there is good in them reconciling and returning back to one another. If it's the first or the second divorce, she is not to leave from the home, and he is not to put her out of the home unless she is guilty of open indecency. And she should not leave. Rather, she should observe 3 menstrual cycles. And when she becomes clean from the 3rd cycle, the iddah is over. And if she is a woman who does not menstruate, then she has 3 Islamic months to observe the iddah. And if she is pregnant, then her iddah lasts until she gives birth. The next question, number 7, is regarding a Muslim woman who has a daughter who is a disbeliever and indulges in sorcery, but she lives with her. And the mother advises her daughter about this matter of dealing with magic. However, the daughter curses her and speaks to her in a manner that's not befitting. Is it allowed for the mother to cut off the ties of kinship with her daughter, who is a disbeliever and who deals in sorcery and magic? How does she interact with her daughter? The Shaykh mentions, it's apparent from the question that this daughter is a grown woman. Because normally it's a woman an adult, who practices magic and deals with this type of stuff. And it is the one who is in puberty was described with the description of kufr and the likes. Shaykh mentioned that she's a danger to her mother because she can harm her mother or afflict her mother with the magic. So she has the right to remove her daughter from the home. And she has the right to free herself from her daughter. If she can advise her and try to get her daughter to come to the truth and accept Islam, then this is good. And she should not cut off giving advice from time to time by way of text or messages, but she must be careful. She must be very cautious in dealing with her. She must stay on top of her adhkar, the words of remembrance of Allah, which are a means of protection for us, for herself. So she has to be careful when dealing with her daughter, but she should not cut off making dua for her daughter. Question number 8. It has been said that it's permissible for a Muslim to hold on or to keep the haram wealth that he had with him before Islam after he has entered into Islam. Is this correct? And also, is it allowed for the Muslim who earned haram wealth while in Islam to keep this haram money after he makes tawbah? The Shaykh Hafidullah, he states this matter is about haram wealth. If he is a disbeliever at the time of earning this haram wealth and then accepting Islam, or he was a criminal Muslim, a sinful Muslim who earned haram wealth and then repented. The Shaykh says there are similarities between the two matters, and the ruling is one. And that is, Tawbah removes that which is before it, and Islam removes that which is before it. However, the scholars, they do differ as it relates to the details of this matter. Some say that the kafir is allowed to keep the money after he accepts Islam. And likewise, a Muslim who was a sinful Muslim and earned haram money and then made tawbah, that he has more rights than the kafir to keep the money. And this is a well-known position on Shaykh al-Islam Ibn Taymiyyah rahimahullah ta'ala. And this is well known in his books. However, there are details, and this is the second statement coming from the ulama. If the money was stolen or taken by force, whether it was done by a kafir or by a person who was a kafir and he was before his Islam, and he stole some money for some people or took the money by force, or it was done by a sinful Muslim, the Shaykh says that which is correct, and this is the most correct position in regarding to stolen money and money that was taken by force, that this money has to be returned back. Even if when even if the person, when he was a kafir, he took the money from other kafirs. That is because we are not living, or you are not living in a land of war. You are living in a land of safety and security where there are covenants between the people that you're not supposed to violate the people's wealth. So as an example, if a person took $1,000, he accepted Islam, he has to return that $1,000 back to the person he took it from and stole it from, or strong-armed it from. And likewise, definitely in the case of a Muslim, if he makes tawbah, he has to return that money back. Then we come to the matter of the haram transactions, like transactions of gambling, or transactions that entail riba, or money that a person made from like tarot card reading, or a person was a palm reader, or source, or kahin, soothsayer, or the person earned some money from music, or the person earned some money from doing some type of indecency and the likes. In this case, there is no one to return the money to. For the people who were involved were pleased with the situation, and they gave the money up willingly. Except as in the case of riba, as some of the ulama say, that in riba, you give back the extra that was taken back to the person. And some scholars, they say also with gambling also, you can give the money back. But other than that, the person is allowed to keep the money. The person stays with the money. So whether it is the kafir who accepts Islam and the Muslim who makes tawbah, they have to understand that the origin of this money is that it's no good. And that on the day of judgment, they'll be questioned about this money. For some ulama, they say it's better to give it away in sadaqah. And this is better for him to do. Use the money and give that money away in sadaqah. And it is allowed for him to benefit from the money if the person is in need. But the Shaykh, he says, it's better for the Muslim to give the money away in sadaqah, especially if the money is hold on. No, it's better for the Muslim to give the money away in sadaqah. No. Number 9, the question is, a man divorces his wife 2 times, and then the iddah period expires, and they separate. And then after some time, after some years, he marries her again. Do they have a new set of 3 divorces, or is 1 divorce remaining upon them? The Shaykh, he says, when a man marries a woman, there are 3 divorces between them. If 1 divorce happens, and then after some time, they marry again. The person divorces his wife, and she goes through the entire iddah period. They separate, they're divorced, and then he marries her again some time later. The Shaykh, he says that first divorce still counts. Even if, could the brothers please keep it down in the back, Barakallah Feek. The first one counts, the Shaykh says the first one counts, even if she married someone in between that time. He says there are 2, and he marries her after there's two divorces remaining. And the Shaykh explained because her marrying someone did not have an effect upon him marrying her back. This is not like the situation when a man divorces a woman 3 times, and then he cannot remarry her unless she marries someone else with a real marriage, and then they're divorced, and then she wants to go back to the first husband. Okay, in that case, that's different. But in the case when her marrying someone doesn't have an effect, meaning the man, whether she marries someone or not, he can remarry her, then it's still considered there's 3 divorces between them. The Shaykh said this is in his opinion, this is the strongest opinion amongst the scholars. And this is the opinion of the elder companions and the majority of the scholars. The Shaykh says, so he returns her back. So the first divorce counts. Different from the case when there's 3 divorces, and she marries a new man with a real marriage, and they consummated the marriage. It doesn't work out, and they're divorced, and then she goes back to the first husband. Now it starts over as a 3. Now it starts over. And this is allowed for him to remarry her after that situation. She was after 3 divorces. and she married someone else and it didn't work out and that marriage was consummated, it's allowed for the man to go back to her again. And this is according to the consensus of the scholars. But in this case of the question, if a man divorces his wife twice, and then in the second divorce, she goes through the complete iddah, and they are divorced, they're separated, and then after some years, he marries her again. Shaykh says there's only one divorce that remains, and Allah knows best. Question number 10. Is it permissible to have two wives living in the same home if they are in agreement? The Shaykh says, if they are in agreement, then this is something good. If there's two wives, three wives, or four wives, and they're all in agreement that they're going to live under the same roof, the Shaykh said this is good. However, this is rare that you'll find this in this day and time. So yes, it is allowed, but with one condition, that during the times of relations and intercourse, there must be privacy. It was not allowed for a man to have relations with one wife in the presence of the other wife. And their auras are exposed to one another. It's not permissible for a woman to be looking at the aura of another woman. Question number 11. In this time, we find that there are some students of knowledge and some callers to Allah who are given the title Shaykh so-and-so. And this is mentioned on their social media accounts, and when their classes are being spread and in their lectures, their names are mentioned as Shaykh so-and-so, and upon their videos on YouTube, while at the same time these individuals are youth. And there are many from amongst the common folk who hold these individuals or believe these individuals to be from the Mashaykh and from the scholars, and they even interact with them as if they are Mashaykh and scholars. What is the ruling of this term Shaykh being applied to other than the scholars and the Mashaykh? And who has the right to be called Shaykh, especially in this time of fitna? The Shaykh says, as for the technical terminology for the word Shaykh, then normally it is referring to someone who has knowledge, someone who studied and now he's teaching. He became a teacher and he has students. He is their Shaykh. And this is whether or not the person is righteous or evil. Just one moment. No, hold on. That's first, let's deal with the technical term. It's for one who has knowledge, one who has studied, and now the person he teaches. That's the technical term, normally when this word Shaykh is used. So you have an individual, he is a teacher of students. He is their Shaykh because he teaches them. And this is how, again, like another way that people use the term Shaykh, that he's a person who teaches people. And it doesn't matter whether the person is righteous or corrupt, entitled or not. He is called Shaykh from the aspect of him being the teacher. So like the word Ustad is equivalent to the word Shaykh, or Shaykh is equivalent to the word Ustad, because he teaches them. And the Shaykh mentions, it is not from the customs of the scholars that they have like specific rules and guidelines and qualifications that must be met in order for a person to be called Shaykh, because you have this term Shaykh being used from a linguistic aspect, from a customary aspect, from the technical terminology aspect. You have the word sheikh being used with the scholars of hadith, and they have their own meanings. So there's different usages of the word sheikh. And just because somebody is called sheikh, it doesn't necessarily mean that the person is a scholar. Just because a person is called sheikh, it doesn't mean that the person is a scholar. And the scholars do not hold that because someone is called sheikh, then that automatically means that that person has met certain qualification. The sheikh, he mentioned that one of the great scholars in Algeria, Sheikh Firkus, he had wrote an article on this topic of the terminology of sheikh. And in gist of that which the sheikh wrote, that the only people who can be given this term is like a person who is a scholar. Like a person who is a scholar. He says, however, Sheikh Firkus himself, even though he wrote that article, that there are times where he has called people sheikh who are not scholars. As it's kind of hard to only use that term for the scholars, especially when it's customary that this term is used, to describe a people. And he mentioned that sometimes Sheikh Firkus himself has labeled or called students of knowledge sheikh. And he said that there were some individuals there in Algeria with him. They were known as Mashaykh. And then you had about 3 or 4 of them that wasn't even qualified to be called that, and they were like small students of knowledge and the likes. So the Sheikh, he mentioned the point just to show that even though Sheikh Firkus, he wrote in his article regarding this term sheikh being like for people who are scholars, but he himself in times when dealing with people and talking to people and addressing people, he has called individual sheikh who are not scholars, showing that this is something that they use in their customary speech when speaking to people. And it doesn't necessarily mean that the person who's being called sheikh is a scholar. The Shaykh mentions that the common folk, unfortunately, they are deceived by anyone who puts himself forward. He says, look at this man, Amr Khalid. This man shaves his beard. This man is wearing like a suit and tie. And this individual has spoken with words of ignorance and corruption. And then the people, they hold him to be like this big individual. So he says, like the common folk, and most of them, they're not Salafy. They are deceived by anybody who comes forward and starts teaching, or anybody who gets them to cry or is crying when addressing the people and have these speeches, fiery like speeches and the likes. Even if the person is the most ignorant of the people, you'll find the common folk still gravitating to this individual and looking at the person as if he's some type of sheikh. And this is for these common folk, except for those whom Allah have guided. Then you have the terminology sheikh used by the scholars of hadith. And the word sheikh is used for one who narrates hadith, whether he has a lot of hadith that he narrated or a few number of hadith he narrated, whether he's a liar, whether he's truthful and reliable. And this is one of the terminology. They say he's the sheikh, meaning because he narrates hadith. And he has students who take these narrations from him. Then you have another terminology for sheikh that's meant, and this was used by Abu Hatim al-Razi, is a person whose condition is not unknown, but he really doesn't have like a praise. His condition is concealed or near to it. Not unknown, but not so much praised. And he's close to being like one who is considered truthful. So Abu Hatim al-Razi, he would say he's a sheikh. So-and-so was a sheikh. Nah. So there's not really like no criticism against him, nor any actual praise, but only the word sheikh is used for him. So Imam al-Dhahabi and al-Mizan, he didn't consider it to be an actual criticism. But if another scholar of criticism like Yahya ibn Ma'in was to criticize someone who has that title sheikh, then this would be accepted over the title sheikh. Also, in the terminology of the people of hadith, sheikh is used for a scholar of hadith, but he has an odd opinion that goes against other scholars of hadith. They say that he's a sheikh, he's reliable, but meaning he's a teacher, but he has like something that's odd in the narrations. And you'll find this in the books of hadith. Also, from the linguistic aspect, today, or the usage of the people in today's time, today, sheikh is used for an older man. For an older man. So a person that's 60 years old and older, they say sheikh. Or a person is like 80 years old, 90 years old, 100 years old, they say Shaykh Kabir, like an older sheikh. And this is like in Saudi. And also like in the Khalij, in the Gulf states, when they say sheikh, this terminology is referring to someone who has status. Someone who is like maybe a ruler in the land or one of the governors or the likes in the land. And then like in the places like Jordan and Sham, like the Palestine area and the likes, they use the terminology sheikh for anyone who has a beard and who prays. This is likewise in Saudi, they say sheikh. Or they use sheikh for just any man. Yeah, sheikh, the sheikh, he said. He said even sometimes you'll find some people they call a dog a sheikh. Like a dog is usually say sheikh, just addressing the dog because the dog is a being. But this is like in the customary usage. So the sheikh, he says, a sheikh, starting from once a person reaches the age of 50, he's a sheikh. And once he's 60 years and older, he's Shaykh Kabir. And then from the time of puberty up to 40 years, he's a shab. The person from puberty to 40 years, the person is a shab. And then from 40 years to 50, this is the state of kahula. And this is something that the people must understand. So individuals being called sheikhs in this time of fitna, this term doesn't harm us. This term is not going to harm us. They can call themselves whatever they want to call themselves. We do not praise anyone except one who is deserving to be praised, nor do we criticize anyone who is deserving to be criticized. He said, like for instance, an imam of the masjid. They call him sheikh because he's the imam of the masjid, especially if he teaches the people and he has students there in the masjid. Even if this person is young, 20 or 25, they'll say he's the sheikh, like the sheikh of the masjid. He's the imam of the masjid. But now here's the question. Is this a person who the people are to return back to, seeking religious fatwa? Is he a scholar? Okay, now this needs to be made clear. Okay, you may say the person is a sheikh or sheikh so-and-so because he's your teacher, but is he actually a scholar? Now this needs to be made clear. Is he actually from the people of knowledge? This needs to be made clear. Is he actually the one who we're supposed to go back to seek fatwa from? This needs to be made clear. The last question. In America, there are laws that when a person of a relative dies, that a person dies, that the money goes to like the closest relative. One moment. Now, that a person dies, that the money goes to the closest relative. If there is no will, that the money will go to the relative. So what does a Muslim do? What does the Muslim do if one of his relatives dies and he is the closest relative, but his relative is a disbeliever? Is he allowed to keep the money? And if he is poor, is he allowed to keep the... Now, is he allowed to keep this money if he is poor? The Shaykh mentioned that the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam mentioned that the Muslim does not inherit from the disbeliever, and the disbeliever does not inherit from the Muslim. However, if there is a will from the disbeliever, then this is something different. So, as an example, if a person's father is a disbeliever, he speaks to his father and gets him to understand that he cannot inherit from him, but if the money is given in a will, he can take the money. And there is no will for one who is entitled to inheritance. This is in Islam. That those who are going to inherit your money, you cannot put them in a will because they are already entitled to the Islamic inheritance. So likewise, there are people who are going to inherit from the kafir. So if the kafir puts you in the will, then the narration does not apply to you about the Muslim inheriting from the kafir. Because the Muslim is in the will and he's not inheriting. Now, so in this case, where the government gives the money to the closest of kin, then he can take the money. And this is in the case if there is no one to inherit the money. However, if the disbeliever who passed away has people who are entitled to the inheritance, then he must give the money to those who is entitled to the money. Even if the government gave him the money, the government gave him that money in oppression. So he must give those who are entitled to the money. However, if there is no one to take the money, he's the one who's the closest, and the government has given him the money, then he can keep the money, for this is not inheritance. Rather, this is money that was given to him by the government. And if he is poor, then he has more right to the money. And if he is not in need of the money, then it's good for him. He can give the money to those who are poor and are needy, and this is better for him. And Allah knows best. And this is the end of the Q&A session. Barakallahu fikum. سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك اشهد ان لا اله الا انت استغفرك واتوب اليك. السلام عليكم ورحمه الله وبركاته.